All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistolka, and with me today, I have none other than Darcy Eikenberg, and we are going to be talking about enhancing employee retention. Darcy, thanks for being here today.
Oh, Damon, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man, I'm excited about this because, wow, the challenges that people are having hiring, recruiting, hiring, and retaining employees right now. This is a hot topic in many areas for sure.
Yeah, super hot topic. Even with, in the news, there's so much around some of the big tech companies doing layoffs, and there's all this worry and the economic questions. This is still happening. People are still moving on. People are still leaving, and leaders are left with holes and don't know what to do. So it's still a great time to really focus on engagement, retention, and what you need for your business.
Yes, and it doesn't matter what kind of business it is. If you lose a key person, it's a big deal, and that's really what this addresses. So, as we do, Darcy, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got where you're working on what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, so my professional background was I was in a large HR consulting firm, global firm for 15 years, worked my way up from person behind the scenes to being a partner who was out in front of big deals. And every 3 years, I had the great opportunity to have a new assignment or a new team, or I moved locations. And so I had growth without even thinking about it, without even questioning it or looking for it. And then I got to the point where the next step up was a question mark for me, and it all came to a head one night in a cold McDonald's parking lot. I'll never forget this. It was before we had Bluetooth and we could do a lot of hands-free calling.
Yeah.
But my boss, who was in the Chicago area, I was flying from Atlanta to a meeting in the Chicago area. She wanted to talk to me before this meeting, and that was not a usual thing for her. So I got the message after I got to the O'Hare airport. And so I got in my rental car. I pulled over into a cold McDonald's parking lot because I needed to take the call, catch her on the phone. And she told me she was going to retire. And in the next breath, she told me one of my peers, the one who was already located at headquarters, was getting that job. And then I realized, what was I feeling? I was feeling relief. I was realizing that decision now was just made for me. And I realized I wasn't striving for that job anyway. And then in the next second, I said, if I don't want that job, what do I want to do next? And that really started my journey on just trying to figure that out. And it involved finding and hiring a professional coach. And this is 15, probably almost 20 years ago, when not everybody was a coach and you didn't really know what that was.
Yeah.
But what evolved in that was recognizing where my true superpowers and strengths were. And it really was I could be the person in the front of the room selling the big deal, closing the business, but I was better at helping the teams and the leaders together figure out how they can go and do it. And so that led into coaching and leadership development, and it's work that has evolved to this day.
Awesome. So what do you think you liked most about the consulting work that you were able to do before you moved into this?
Oh, well, there's no question. It was always the people, right? The people that I worked with, both my colleagues and my clients, still make up some of my core network and friends today.
Very cool.
It was a very collaborative company. It was very high performing. So these are smart people, and I didn't realize till I left, how the whole world isn't like that.
Yeah.
So it was actually a surprise to me, and not everybody knows that you should do this, or here's how these things work. So
Mhm.
I learned so much so fast. I had so much great support from our leadership. And even when I decided that I wanted to explore the world of professional coaching, I was able to create, actually to entrepreneur, a coaching program inside my part of the business, um, for our team to be able to experiment with some skills and ideas that I wanted to grow and
Mhm.
still benefit the company. So I was given the space and the grace to be able to do that, and it helped me see really where I wanted to spend more time going forward.
Wow, that was cool. So you're able to kind of like try before you buy a little bit as you're building out some
Very
things you
nice.
want. Yeah.
I'd earned that reputation. I always say to people, don't discount, when people give opportunities, don't say, oh, well, they just gave it to me. I earned it. I
Yes.
did
Oh
great
yeah.
work. I had great results. But still, it was always the people. And I think that's still true for me today in the work I do now.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you're helping leaders today figure out, really the things they need to be themselves working on to enhance the retention. What are some of the common, or I don't even like to say challenges, but the common things that you see that people are that are happening in these organizations that and leaders don't even realize?
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that often gets overlooked is, are we actually clear about what people are feeling, what they're saying, what they're doing? And even, am I actually clear about myself as a leader, what I'm doing, how this aligns with my values, where I'm spending time? So this is why I have a formula called the stay strategies, and clarity is one of the first anchors in that, because too often I hear leaders making assumptions. We go to the extreme. Oh, all people in this role do this kind of thing. And we don't live in that world where it's one size fits all anymore.
Hmm.
Leadership is hand to hand combat in some ways these days. Um, there are lots of unique issues, there are lots of different
Hmm.
needs, and spending the time, investing the time with your people to get clear about what's important for them. And even I'd say to start understanding what's important for you, for the business that you want to run, the way that you want to be in the business. And often just even focusing on that, taking the time that who you are and what you want right now, can be incredibly powerful to be able to build yourself as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's step back. I jumped ahead a little bit, but let's step back because you wrote the book Red Cape Rescue. And I think this is really relevant to because this was around individuals and some other things. So talk about that a little bit because I want to build upon where we're going with developing leaders and helping them enhance retention.
Yeah. So the full name of the book is Red Cape Rescue: Save Your Career Without Leaving Your Job.
Yeah.
And it's intended as a handbook for those times that we all have when you hit a speed bump at work, right? When something happens that is the catalyst moment. I think it's the book I wish I had in that cold McDonald's parking lot. When your head is going to, and all the noise outside is saying, well, if it's not here, then I have to go out somewhere else. Like, oh, this is bad right now. I have to run. And that actually, there's brain science why we react like that. The brain wants to keep us safe. So
Hmm.
we either freeze or flee or we fight. But
Hmm.
most of our tendencies is to freeze or flee. And I think this is what we saw during the huge disruptions during COVID, of people going through mountains of change, and something wasn't right for them in their life at work, and saying, let me go to this other option. But I've had many conversations with folks who have done that and are saying, you know what, the same issues that I was struggling with back there are issues I'm having here. So the book really is intended for you to put you back in control. And you mentioned it's for individuals. Well, I always remember leaders are individuals too, right? Leaders have issues in
Yes.
their careers, and business owners, entrepreneurs, and we all have those times where we have those hiccups. But the book is organized by the three things that you control. You control what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that's it. But it's enough. And each of those three things, I give you some specific strategies
Hmm.
where you can, look harder at what you think. You can revise what you say, or you can rethink what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good because I think now, as you said, we were talking earlier about most of your work now is really helping leaders in these organizations work on A themselves and B the organizations to enhance retention. So I'm thinking about the book and I'm thinking about what you're talking about. I have to imagine that the leaders almost if they should be reading the RedCape Rescue because a lot of the things that they're thinking about, they might be seeing people that are maybe not perfectly, they're not happy at work, whatever, they're just not clicking for them, that they might be able to help facilitate things for their people as well.
We are never taught what we control and what we don't. We're
Yeah.
taught and we're fed um, a media diet, if you will, that is like work is hard, times are tough. We were and there's reasons behind that. And it also,
Hmm.
again, appeals to how the brain reacts, right? The brain is receptive to those negative messages, and just wants to like shrink and hide and stay safe. But that's not how people are built to grow, and it's not fulfilling and create opportunities for people to bring what they do best to any workplace. So if a leader can recognize some of these strategies that I talk about, they can turn around and teach them. They can recognize for themselves where they
Hmm.
might be, where they might need to employ some of those strategies. They're thinking something they don't have control over something, or they think they're frustrated because they don't control so many things instead of breaking down, well, what's the one thing I control in here? Could I control asking for what I need, being more specific with the ask?
Yeah.
Could I control assuming positive intent is a chapter? Do I need to literally change my thinking about what that circumstance or situation actually means? So yes, so these are tools for leaders, and it's part of when we do some leadership roundtables or cohorts within organizations to be able to dig into that and dig into what for someone personally they might have their own blind spot or roadblock on.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you like most about helping people developing people, helping them develop themselves and
I guess that's a great question. I guess the part that is always satisfying and exciting for me is when the spark of possibility comes out, the recognition of something that is in someone's control. And it was surprising. Years ago, I did a series of manager groups across a very large technology company. And these were they were called managers, but they were pretty high level people that maybe had teams of 50 or 60 who were reporting to them, to each
Mhm.
person in the group. And inevitably, we do some hot seat coaching in that group where one or two people would take a turn and share an issue that they were dealing with. And the group would weigh in, and I would uh, kind of coach them through. And inevitably, as we come to action, which is the other thing about the way that I like to coach, we always come to what's the action, right? What choice are we making now to move us forward? inevitably a lot of the conversations would end with, I need to tell my manager this. I need to have the conversation with my leader. I need to have the conversation with my teammate. So those things seem so simple when you think about it, but you think about how much we swirl and we don't see the possibility of, oh, I can actually talk to that person about this, or I can ask for that, or whatever. So when that spark of possibility happens, that I do my little happy dance. So yeah, that always is
There you
like,
go. So did you see yourself doing this 20 years ago?
oh no. No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I seem probably to most people like a lifer in my consulting firm.
Yeah.
And probably if we hadn't been to the, if there had been the next opportunity or something that just was, you know, handed to me, like most things had been handed to me in my
Mm-hmm.
more junior years, um, that I might have, yeah, I might have continued on and not, but I'm really grateful that I had that catalyst moment, that time in the cold
Yeah.
McDonald's parking lot. And I think we all need, a catalyst moment sometimes. And part of one of the things we do in coaching and leadership development is to intentionally create those, to just to take that step back, and just say, hey, is what I'm doing still working for me? Is my work still working? If Is it aligned with who I am and what I want now? And if it's not, where do I need to recalibrate or adjust? It doesn't have to be a wholesale, I need to
Mm-hmm.
sell the farm and move, overseas,
Yeah.
but it can just be little incremental changes that keep us from burning out. So, no, 20 years ago, I was, deep dive into my leadership roles and focusing on my clients and my teams, and probably not making a lot of time to think about myself and what I wanted.
Yes. I think there's a lot of that happens when we're at that point is we're so focused in what we're doing that we don't think about as leaders. We don't think enough about ourselves and what really you get so wrapped up in the work that you forget that you're part of it that has
Mhm,
to be just as healthy and just as whole as the work you're doing.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, it's, I think it's more magnified now as we're talking about things like wellness and mental health. But the truth is that, you know, leading doesn't just mean leading process. I mean, it means leading people. And that means that even if you think that, well, my team's not really tracking with me, or they're not, that I inherited a team, they're not really my team. When you're at a leader level, people do look at you differently. They expect different things from you. I remember this example in my own career when I moved from being, just a good senior consultant to leading the entire practice for the region. And I thought, well, I'm just Darce, right? I'm the same person I've always been. But I recognized that if I would say something, it would had a different impact. And I have one story that always sticks with me. I was printing something out and I made a comment, and it was in a public shared space, made a comment that said, I don't understand why this printer's not two-sided. This just seems super wasteful. And I walked away, never thought about it again. A week later, one of the administrative assistants who was in the pool area where I went to the printer came back and said, here's the proposal and the costs on the two-sided printer. And I said, "What is this?" She's like, "You said we needed to have a two-sided printer." So I was just talking. I didn't expect someone to go into action and then go and talk to a vendor and spend
Yeah.
hours working on a proposal. So that, it was a way to magnify for me that as a leader, you may not see yourself differently, but people do.
Yes. Yes. And like you said, as you were, and I know a lot of people I did as well, move from that more of I'm in doing the work to now I'm leading the people that I was working with before. Some I was working before, some are new. I mean, I can remember similar situations where I was saying something, just really thinking, talking to myself, walking, and it was heard, and it's like, whoa, you know, you really have to learn as a leader to and I was reading something yesterday about this, is really develop a role model, almost kind of mentality as you're walking around, because it's not an offhanded curse word here or there or something that you're saying, it's just really everything is under scrutiny because of that leadership responsibility.
Yeah, and the only way you can do that, it is humanly impossible to self-manage all the time if we haven't taken time, a regular period, to stop and kind of back up a little bit and be able to have some external help to see our blind spots, or just even to have that self-reflection time to say,
Hmm.
where are the places where I feel like I'm just slightly out of tune, that I need to, like, the old-fashioned radio, I need to move the dial a little bit this way or a little bit that way to get
Hmm.
more sharper into tune. And Michael Hyatt, the author, tells a story about, in the early days, he was in a meeting with his team and his executive coach was sitting there. And afterwards she said, well, so how'd you think the meeting went? He's like, it was great. Everything's terrific. And she's like, well, you need to tell your face that, because he was, he never smiled. He was, all business. And the people in the room got the vibe that they were in fear. They were feeling like everything's a problem, whereas he was feeling like, I'm really proud of this team. This is terrific. So our leadership self is just as important to manage as the people that we're responsible for.
Yes, yes, yes. I laugh because I used to have, many years ago, I had a business partner that really was a high level thinker and didn't really care. Well, he cared about the business and how it ran, but we would have fairly important internal meetings, and he might doze off in the corner if he felt like it. And the people always thought that same thing. He's like, well, what is? He's like, no, it's you guys are doing awesome. It's just I feel that comfortable.
Yeah.
And but just think of the example it set and how much
Yeah.
you get to deal with that. But
And the
that's
story that people create out of that, right? This is one of the chapters in the book. It's called Rewrite Your Story, because often, there's a, we all are experiencing circumstances. The circumstance, we have choices about how we interpret it. So interpreting my boss is falling asleep in the corner could be, he's checked out, he's a jerk, he's rude. It could be he doesn't care, could be I'm boring. I mean, there's a million stories. So this
mhm,
is where creating more connection, more dialogue, to be able to kind of unpack and rewrite, or maybe you'll never know what the other person is thinking or assuming, but can you make a different choice for yourself? Say, well, that
yeah,
doesn't mean I'm boring. That's his challenge.
yeah.
So yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So as you're doing this, what what are some of the common things that you see across the board that really leaders have not been taught or just don't understand?
Mhm.
You talked about clarity already, but
Right, right. One big thing that none of us have been taught is understanding how the brain works naturally. And the neuroscience on this is just fascinating. But just to keep it simple, and I referred to this before, it's recognizing we only control three things: what we think, what we say, and what we do. But the fact is, we can have some control over our thoughts. We can be intentional about what we say.
mhm,
And we can make active choices about what we do. I'll often say that work is all made up. And because the truth is that the same job in a company can look very different from person to person. And that's often because of how it's made up and how the person is making it up based on what they're good at, what they're interested in, who has taught them, what the surroundings are. And so I think for leaders, recognizing that, first of all, everybody doesn't recognize that they're only a lane of things they control. But they do control more than they give themselves credit for in the workplace. We
Yeah.
think, well, that's just how it is. But if everything's made up and somebody had to make up that project you're doing, why would you why would you assume it has to be done that way? I think the other piece with the brain that I wish we were teaching in school is that we're the brain is not naturally designed to be happy all the time. It is natural to have downtimes and concerns. Um,
Mhm.
Ideally, we want this balanced by times when we're feeling fulfilled and happy and doing well. But I think what happens a lot of times is when problems hit. Let's face it, problems are the language of jobs, right? You don't have there's
Mhm.
not a job if there's not a problem to be solved.
Yes.
But when problems hit or things get difficult, if we don't have the right culture, we don't have the right surround, then we freeze. We think something's wrong. It triggers our brains that we want to go hide, and that's the last thing that we need for people. And so again, there are some cultures or some leaders that are great at helping people recognize that problems, road bumps, um, things not going according to plan is that's our world. That's why we have jobs. We create solutions to problems. And but I don't think we often think about it that way. We think, oh, just one more problem, instead of great job security, more problems to solve.
Mhm. I really like that because you said it was either work is problems or there that's why we work is to solve problems and yeah, people people it's you can come apart pretty easy when there are extraordinary problems and you can embrace them as well.
Yeah, and for anybody who has been affected by downsizing or layoffs, one of the things I'll often say to folks who are looking for that next opportunity is every every open job is a problem to be solved, and there are problems and pain out there that no one's created a job around yet. And so when you go, instead of looking for a job, like, go hunting for the problems, go hunting for the pain. This is
Ooh.
even as you're selling. If you're a company and you're trying to find new customers, like whose pain do you solve? If you can't tell that story or you're not clear on that, then that's a clarity issue, right? That's
Mhm.
going back to the groundwork. But people people want solutions to pain. What's the old marketing phrase? They want aspirin, not vitamins.
Yeah.
But this is also again responding to how the brain works. The brain responds to trying to stay away, out of pain, out of discomfort. Those of us who know that discomfort is the only path to growth are the ones who can succeed. And so that's another learning point for folks, that it's okay to be uncomfortable. That's the only way you get from here to there.
Discomfort is the path for growth. That's good. Well, yeah, you think about it as a leader, some of the most challenging situations that you're put in, if you take them, reflect on them, learn from them, it can be so helpful for you because and I'll paraphrase this too, or like example, because you see some people that have been through it, right? They've been through it. The firefighter that's been on the job for 10 years, he goes to the house fire and it's like, oh yeah, it's burning down. We're going to do this and this. And the person that just started, oh my goodness, there's a house fire. What are we going to do?
Right.
And that in a leader's capacity can mean huge things for their team because that leader can take that calm, that thought, yes, they might have had a really tough time in the first time this happened, but when something like that happens again, they can utilize that to be much more productive with themselves and their teams.
Yeah. And this also goes to knowing who you are as a leader, because I think that when we have the anchor of the clarity, and when I work on this with with my coaching clients, or have an online class called Get Career Clear that takes you through this process.
Nice.
The things that you discover, you anchor into your values and your long-term vision, and those things allow you to have a framework to make choices from, right? Because the
Mhm.
person who values collaboration, no matter what kind of problem comes up, they're not going to do it alone. They're going to lean into their values and say, who else do we need to get involved to solve this? And so, and there are lots of routes to solution, and no one perfect route. And I think in a Google world, or maybe a Chat GPT world, we kind of assume there's a solution, there's an answer on the other end, but that's not what work is like, right?
Yes. Yes. I was just reading that. Um, Again, a little feedback here, but I'll wait just a second. It usually clears up. I was just reading something about that the other day. It says one of the best ways to solve a problem is to realize that the solution is not there when the problem happens, and you need to reflect, wait, you know, you know, uh, you know, do what you need to do to make sure the problem isn't making it causing any more damage, but wait, because that solution is not there. It takes that reflection and a different perspective to actually come up with the solutions. And it's so cool that you said that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And often we resist putting our foot on the next rock toward away from what's happening and towards something, because we don't know what that something is. We don't know what that future is.
Hmm.
It's like, for folks who maybe they're ready to exit their business, but they don't know what they're going to do next, so they just stay on and they stay on.
Hmm.
If they're ready to hand over the reins to somebody else, or they're step out of a owner role or a leadership role. And so, these things, getting the clarity is such an anchor to help you make a better decision. The other side of the creek may not be totally clear, but starting to put your foot on the one rock that's in front of you then allows you to make the choice as to what the next rock is, and the next rock. And it's not going to be a straight line. It's all a zigzag, but there's, only, a million solutions to every problem. It's just, what's the path you're going to take?
Yes, yes, and that is so difficult for business leaders and business owners. And that in the exit, it's a huge,
Mhm.
huge decision, because often very, very life changing decision. But when you can take the time, and you see people that take the time, put the work in, it takes work to really think about what it's going to be like and what they really want to be doing, because there are different productive, say, whatever really exciting things that they can be doing beyond what they're doing now. It's fun watching people's mind expand as they really contemplate what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. And I think another part of that, and then back to what I, would like more leaders to recognize and know, is there's a part as to where I have to just trust that everything isn't going to be perfect, and that's okay, right? I have talked to founders before who really want to move on. There's something else they could move on to, but the risk feels too big to leave
Hmm.
things because the trust isn't fully there. Even when you dig into it, they're like, no, this person is totally ready, and this process is super clean, and the customer base is there. But there is, it's, how do we trust things to let it go? It's the analogy of the trapeze, right? You can't grab onto that next trapeze until you let go of the one behind it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. So as you're moving forward now, Darcy, what are you most excited about in 2023?
Oh, let's see. I have some amazing companies that we are doing ongoing leadership roundtables with. I think a lot
Hmm.
of people in the last several years have, obviously, some companies have been forced to not be able to have more connection, but that's such an important part of what people want in their life at work. They
Mhm.
want to feel belonging, they want to feel connection. And so creating more opportunities for people to, I call it creating collisions, where across functions in a company that leaders are able to get together, and it has structure, and it's,
Mhm.
efficient use of time, but it's also as much for them as it's for the growth of the company. So I'm excited about some of those projects that come my way. And I am working on an article for Harvard Business Review, and working on
Woo.
possible TEDx talk. And so, those are those things
Wow.
that are aspirational for me. And just, have to keep at it, and
Yeah.
they're always fun. And so, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, Darcy. And it's incredible being able to talk to you and learn more about how you're helping leaders, in their development, and how they can create environments that really enhance employee retention. And just thankful that we could talk with you today.
Oh, I'm so grateful for the invitation. Thank you for all you do for your clients, your people, and the businesses that you're working with every day.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Darcy, thanks for being here. And everyone else that's been here listening, just let us know if you got any questions. Go back to the beginning of this and listen to Darcy. I mean, there was a lot of golden nuggets that she dropped there and all throughout. And if you need to reach out to Darcy, what's the best place to get a hold of you?
There are lots of resources at redcaperevolution.com, and I have a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for at redcapeinsider.com, or if you go on my website, it's Join My Insider Community. And that's a great way to keep in touch.
Very good. Very good. Well, Darcy, thanks again for being here. And we'll be back again next week. Hang out just a moment.